Hey, what's going on, guys? Today in this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Puma Fast-R 3. So, a little bit about me before I get into the run, but I am 5'11", I am between 195 and 200 pounds. Some of my preferences, especially in this category of shoe when I'm looking at a super shoe or a race shoe, is going to be how much speed assistance or explosiveness it's giving me when I'm going through my strides. But then also, especially when looking at some of the distances that I look to race at, whether it's the half marathon or marathon, does it actually hold up in the stability department and support me as my legs and joints start to fatigue? But before we get into the shoe review itself, I do need to give a special shout out to today's sponsor. You guessed it, it's my wife, because I don't think she really knew that I got these at first, but she was okay when she saw them because of the colorway. So have to give a shout out to her. But that being said, first things first, let's go into the actual upper of the shoe and how this shoe fit overall. And as always, please reference the rating system that I'll have linked up above if you want a reference for how I rate shoes. So with this upper, and I really have to give Puma their kudos here, they really made this upper feel a lot more accommodating. So I have a slightly wider than normal foot, and one of my favorite shoes that they produced, the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3, that shoe was unfortunately too narrow for me. So as much as I love that shoe, and I even PR'd in it in the last marathon I did in Austin earlier this year, it suffocated my foot and it really jacked up my toenails, meaning I had a bloody toenail after my marathon, and I've never had that experience before in another shoe. And as much as I enjoyed everything else about that shoe, that upper was definitely snug. Not the case with the Fast-R 3s. It feels much more accommodating. I also wonder if it's because it does have a much more breathable mesh upper, so I'm wondering if it's just giving a little bit more. But overall, there aren't really any complaints I have. The other thing too is that I've noticed with some of the newer race shoes, they've been sacrificing weight by basically trying to trim off the weight from the heel collar. This shoe actually does have a nice heel collar in that it's not going to be plush like a daily trainer, but it does give you that support and it makes you feel like you're locked down. For example, some of the other shoes that I'll be reviewing here, I've noticed that ankle padding or lack thereof has made it really hard, not only when it comes to locking down my foot overall, because I do have smaller than normal ankle joints, but also even when I'm pushing off. I like having, and I remember this being a thing when carbon plated shoes first came out, is that you actually wanted to have your heel locked in, because when you're going through your motion of running, you want that lever from your ankle being locked in to actually use that stiffening agent to push off. So really good job with the upper for Puma, and I think for a lot of people that have historically struggled with Puma uppers in the past, I think they'll find a really nice accommodating fit here. So I'm honestly, for a race day shoe, I would have to give this upper a 9 out of 10. If all uppers fit like this shoe, I think most would really enjoy them. All right, so moving on to the biggest part of the shoe, and that's going to be the midsole itself. So for my first run that I did in this shoe, it was a 1K repeat and then a 200K, or sorry, not 200K, 200 meter repeat to finish. So I believe it was 12 reps for the 1K, and then it was 4 reps for the 200 meters. And so my paces that I was supposed to be hitting for those was between a 6:45 to 7 minute. And some of the paces will be a little bit off, and that's just due to the conditions of the run. It was around 90% humidity the day that I ran in these, and it was just very hard. I looked like I showered by the end of that run. That's how much I was sweating. But I'm happy to report that this midsole is actually very good. One of the things that I feel like a lot of people feel when they look at the Fast-R 3 is, am I actually fast enough to make this shoe work? Or is this something that's just for the best of the best or the elites, right? And I'm happy to report, even during the warm-up paces, so my warm-up paces, that's gonna be my daily mileage essentially, pace, it's around an 8:30 to 8:45. They actually felt fine. It wasn't the best feeling. Like when you're running in it, you can definitely tell that it's supposed to be a race shoe. It wants you to pick up the pace. But from a warm-up standpoint, I didn't feel like it was going crazy in any way. I wouldn't say it was stable, but it definitely wasn't unstable at my daily paces when I was doing my warm-up, which was really nice and comforting because for someone like me, honestly, I've been sitting on this shoe for a couple of months now. And it's just because I didn't really know how my ankles, my knees, my hips were going to be able to respond to this shoe. Would I even be able to get the most out of it? But I'm happy to report that this shoe works really well across a range of paces. Again, that's the big word I'm always thinking of when I'm reviewing shoes is what's the range on the shoe? And don't get me wrong, this shoe is an absolute weapon. Like, I am telling you. So again, looking, and I'll put up the paces again here. When I had to do my 200 meters at the end, that's again, like fatigue has accumulated massively over the course of that workout. And by that point, it's just, I need to rip. This shoe responded amazing. I think one of the reps, I hit a 5:15, a 5:20 for those 200 meters. And so that would be half a lap on a track distance. So half of a quarter of a mile. Yeah, fun math there. This shoe was amazing. I can 100% see why elite runners love this shoe. The midsole, it just goes. It's just, it is the definition of riding the tiger. Or in this case, you could say riding the Puma, because this midsole, the more you give in, the more it's gonna give you back in returns in how much you are just propulsive. It's very reactive, and I think it's just due to the nature of the carbon plate. And the other nice thing to note too here from a midsole standpoint is, because I know a lot of people, when they see the shoe, they're gonna be thinking of, okay, well, what if I'm a heel striker, right? Well, the good news is, and I'll flash it up here on the screen, is I am a heavy heel striker in my right foot, and my left foot, I'm more so midfoot. And surprisingly, my right foot felt better than my left foot when it came to how I was striking the ground. For some reason, and the one shoe that came to mind, and RIP, because it was truly one of my favorites of all time, it really reminded me of the Endorphin Elite 1. For some reason, there's something, even though this has that decoupled midsole, it just works. It works so well. I was really surprised by that because I feel like another stereotype or stigma of this shoe is that it's really for the midfoot and forefoot strikers. And honestly, I did not get that sense at all. I mean, was it fine with my midfoot striking foot? Yeah, absolutely. But the right foot, there was just something that was so smooth as I was going through the stride. That was really nice. So really, really surprising in that regard. The only caveat I will give though for this shoe is that it was a bit uncomfortable by the end. I just wanted a little bit more underfoot in the forefoot. Surprisingly enough, I felt the heel had enough cushioning, and I think it's just the way that I was just rolling through my run. But it was one of those things, oop, drop the shoe there. It was just one of those things where I felt like my forefoot was just wanting a little bit more cushioning. So it's not necessarily the best shoe all around for a race shoe. Like, for example, I think this is a great shoe for the intervals that I did today. It would definitely be good for a long run workout where the intensity is going to be high. But I do think there are going to be some limitations for the range of this midsole just due to the way it's built. And it's a racer, right? So, but for example, there's shoes like the the New Balance SC Elite V5. That's a really good all-arounder, right? Where even though it's New Balance's plated racing shoe, it's really good for those long run efforts where the intensity or where you're not necessarily trying to go all out. So for the midsole and the range, I mean, again, its qualities are amazing. It handles pace really well. It even works at some of the slower paces. I'm gonna have to give it an 8 out of 10, just because I still don't believe that it's going to work for everyone, and especially because of its niche use case where intensity should be a bit higher. But that doesn't take anything away from the shoe. It's still a phenomenal shoe. Which leads me to my next point, which is going to be the value component, right? And this is retailing for about $300 now, but I'm starting to see a lot of places have them on discount. Shout out to Hollabird Sport. They will have this shoe on sale regularly between 25 to even, I've seen up to 40% off. And I think if you can get it for that price point, that is a really good price. With one caveat, if you want a racing shoe or you want a weapon, this shoe is going to be very unique in its use case. And you can, in my opinion, you can never dock for the price itself, right? But you can dock depending on the range for that price. And for this shoe, its range is going to be a bit more limited. It's not going to be accumulating mileage over week the same way necessarily that something like the New Balance SC Elite V5 would. And that's just due to, as I mentioned before, where it's slotted best for intensity. But I do think for that purpose, it performs, it's gotta be one of the best out there. It was surprisingly much more stable than I was expecting. And so I do have to give it its flowers in that regard. And so when we think of that, plus you can get it on discount, plus its intended utilization, I think this is really going to be a 9 out of 10. When you're buying this shoe, you know what you're buying. It's a weapon. And it's going to perform if you're buying it for that use case. And so I think there's a lot of inherent value there. I think, with Puma Grip, the rubber, everyone knows how good it is. So I don't think it's going to be wearing out any particularly faster. I mean, sure, the wear pattern on that bottom looks pretty bad, but that honestly, it's more paint than it is actual foam itself. So I think the value is a 9 out of 10. So with that being said, that puts the grand total for this shoe, let's see, 9 plus 8 plus 9, that's gonna put it at a 26 out of 30. I'll give the total score here. And then the last thing I wanna do with closing thoughts is I'm gonna call this the good, the bad, the ugly, the beauty. And so for the good is it's great. It actually can handle, and I think it will work for a much wider range of people than what it's been initially perceived as. I think that's really good. The bad, again, it's still going to have some limitation because, again, just think intensity when you think of the shoe. This is the shoe that you want when you're gonna have an intense workout, when you're gonna be putting a lot of force down into a shoe, because that's when you're gonna get the most ROI out of the shoe. So that being said, the ugly, honestly, there's no, the ugly is, we'll say the retail price. And that's just due to where it sits in the market. I think there's a lot of other competitors out there now that are getting really close to what this shoe is offering. And so it's gonna be very interesting to see how Puma responds. I think it's got a legacy silhouette to it already. When you see the silhouette of this shoe with that sticking out, you know exactly what the shoe is. But I do think there's a lot of other competitors that are coming up. So it's not even really an ugly. And now the beauty. As I've mentioned before, this thing is a beast. You are going to be riding the Puma when you wear this shoe. When you put this on, you already know it's game time, it's time to lock in, and you're about to crush your workout. And this shoe is definitely not gonna be getting in your way. It's only gonna be helping you. So I think this is a phenomenal shoe. I would highly recommend it, especially if you can find it for any time it's on sale anywhere. If you want that one shoe that's gonna be your weapon, that you're ready to go to town and war with, this would be the one that I would recommend. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the shoe. I'm definitely going to be getting more mileage in it, so stick around as I put it through more ranges and paces. But until next time, we'll talk soon. Have a good one.